Well, happy Tuesday. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, your host each and every morning, keeping you plugged in on what you need to know for the land of Lincoln and several things we're going to tackle today. We'll talk live with a State House candidate, Lisa Smith. She is looking to unseat Democrat incumbent Sue Shearer in the November 5th election. So we'll chat with her live about her platform and what separates her from the Democrat in that race. We'll also delve into the issue of corruption in Illinois and how Republicans are looking to possibly capitalize on that. But we've also got to tackle a law that the governor signed yesterday to eliminate the state's grocery tax. But there's a lot more behind that law than just the elimination of the grocery tax, which actually won't be zeroed out until January 1st, not of 2025, but of 2026. So that's just some of what we've got coming up here today with Illinois in Focus Daily. Now, a lot of eyes are going to be on national politics with Vice President Kamala Harris set to announce her VP pick, and all indication is it's not going to be Governor J.B. Pritzker. The governor actually is going to be out today at 10 o'clock in Chicago, signing a law alongside advocates, including the Illinois Secretary of State's office, Alexi Giannoulias, that'll remove barriers from individuals for successful reentry following incarceration. So this deals with, for instance, getting state ID, birth certificate, social security card, and so on. So again, the governor's got an event here in Illinois at 10 o'clock. It doesn't mean he can't fly over to Pennsylvania for Harris's campaign event, where she's expected to stand with her VP pick. But all national headlines following this say that Harris is boiled it down to two, and Pritzker is not one of them. You've got Tim Walz, the governor, I believe, Minnesota, and also Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. So we'll be monitoring that and see, ultimately if there's any reaction from Governor Pritzker today after his news event at 10 o'clock. So be on the lookout for that. And stay up to date with all, not just Illinois headlines, but national headlines. Go to thecentersquare.com. Sign up for the newsletter and get those updates as they happen with breaking news alerts as well. But of course, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here with America's Talking Network so you can stay plugged in. A lot of things happening there, including the new video podcast of Everyday Economics, where you can get a breakdown of some things happening on the economic front. Of course, a lot of red in Wall Street, leading to concerns about recession. But you've also got other international headlines with what's going on in the Middle East, and all of this coming to a head as the vice president prepares to announce who she wants to have as their running mate heading into the Democratic National Convention in Chicago next month. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Join us each and every weekday morning here with America's Talking Network and the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air.
We've eliminated the state grocery tax while also providing historic support for local governments.
The bottom line is a tax cut that has a net zero effect is not a tax cut. All he did was put the burden on local governments, and now they're going to have to deal with that.
That's Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, and State Senator Don DeWitt talking about the elimination of the state's grocery tax, which actually doesn't kick in until January 1st of 2026. Good morning, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you for being with us. And local taxes can now increase with a law that the governor signed yesterday, announcing that legislation is now enacted. This was all used as messaging whenever they enacted the budget. Some background here. You've got the governor having made this decision to eliminate the grocery tax in February of this year. And this all came as a surprise to State Senator Don DeWitt, who actually had the idea to eliminate the state's grocery tax and offset some of those lost dollars locally to the local governments. But if you recall, for the 2022 budget, you had inflation that was peaking, and it was an election year, and the governor and Democrats put a temporary hold on the 1% statewide grocery tax for 12 months. And that dropped that grocery tax down to zero. And in that budget, they actually did give local governments money to offset that. But things changed early February, as State Senator Don DeWitt, the Republican from St. Charles, shared with me yesterday a little bit of background on his proposal and how this new proposal came out from the governor. Here is Don DeWitt from yesterday.
As you probably know, Greg, I've had legislation filed for the last 2 years to eliminate the grocery tax. The governor and I actually had a conversation last summer when he called and said, I really like your bill. I like this initiative. The one question he asked me when we spoke was, how do we take care of the municipal governments? And when he asked me that question, I said, Governor, I think it's a very simple fix. My bill proposed backfill, which would have taken revenue, already collected revenue, and reimbursed the municipal governments for that revenue that was going to be taken away from them by elimination of the tax. I said, why don't you simply give them the LGDF revenue that you're already sweeping from them to the tune of between $500 and $600 million a year? And no one was more surprised than I was when, during his budget speech in February, he announced this brave new initiative to eliminate the grocery tax, which I was thrilled about, but then totally dumped the whole process on local governments, basically moving the burden to them. And what that caused was a situation where local governments were going to now have to choose: do they live with that loss of revenue because all of the 1% grocery tax revenue went to local governments? Do local governments choose to live without that revenue, or do they choose to cut services and employees and all of the things that those revenues help fund for local governments? And unfortunately, that's the route he chose. To me, Greg, the bottom line is a tax cut that has a net zero effect is not a tax cut. All he did was put the burden on local governments, and now they're going to have to deal with that.
Again, State Senator Don DeWitt talking with me yesterday. Ultimately, this measure, yes, it has the reduction from 1% to 0% of the grocery tax, but there's a lot more behind this legislation. It's an omnibus bill, a bill that included several measures within it. And those measures included allowing for local governments to increase their own grocery tax up to 1%. But it didn't just stop there. It also allowed other local governments to increase their sales tax. And all of this not through voter referendum, where the voters would then go to the polls and make the decision. No, they can do this through an ordinance. And while the grocery tax is eliminated January 1st, 2026, not January 1st, 2025, January 1st, 2026, local governments can immediately take up ordinances to increase local taxes. A couple of other measures in there. You've got Chicago allowed to up to a 9% 911 surcharge or tax for 911 services. All of that tax can be added to prepaid wireless plans, for instance. But also, Sangamon County can increase taxes on hotels up to 3%. All of that included in this legislation. But to those local tax increases, Senator DeWitt responds to that.
I believe it is non-home rule local governments can implement the tax right away. Look, home rule governments, communities of 25,000, a population of 25,000 or more, always have the opportunity through their home rule authority to be able to raise their sales taxes however they see fit. It is the non-home rule communities that were also given the ability to pass this tax along to their residents. And I believe the language in the bill is correct, that they can do that as soon as they feel it's necessary to do. I can tell you that the request by local governments to move this effective date to January 1st, 2026 was frankly to eliminate all of these elected local governments, particularly mayors and aldermen, to put this off for 2 years to get through next year's municipal elections, and hopefully not have to make this something that they have to deal with on a political basis. Now, I would never suggest that the governor went along with that to try to create heartburn for some municipal governments who may not agree with his particular issues or political agenda, but most mayors are happy that it's been pushed off to January 1st, 2026.
Again, some political considerations there for this, taking that delay, not implementing it January 1st of 2025, but instead even a year later on January 1st, 2026. The next local elections, by the way, are, I believe, early April of 2025. So the reduction of the tax and the financial implications on local governments won't actually be felt until a year later in 2026. That gets local officials through another local election cycle. But when this does kick in, when the elimination of the grocery tax does kick in at January 1st, 2026, I've heard it's up to $300+ million of impact statewide to local governments that'll be lost. And that's tax dollars the state has giving to local governments from that grocery tax being eliminated. But DeWitt says that he's seen numbers that are much higher.
I think it's actually more like 400 plus. I've seen numbers as high as 420 million. So the real impact on local governments, Greg, is the fact that, there are smaller communities. Take Sugar Grove, Illinois, a little community of about 12,000 people. The effect on them is going to be about $300,000. But you get to a community like my hometown in St. Charles, it's 1.3 million. You get to Algonquin, it's 1.6. You get to a community like Schaumburg, it's $6.4 million in lost revenue unless they pass that tax burden on to their residents. I am suggesting to most mayors who've contacted me about this legislation, put a non-binding referendum on the upcoming ballot and see how your residents feel. Do they want to live with reduced services in their communities? Or are they willing to live with maintaining that same tax revenue to the local government in order to maintain those services? There's some very tough choices that a lot of mayors are going to have to make.
And again, he says that he's encouraging local mayors to have a non-binding referendum on the ballot, see how voters feel about this. But they can still take the action without a referendum, even a binding one. Through ordinance, so they can increase sales taxes now through ordinance. They can increase up to a 1% grocery tax locally by ordinance. And all of this too, the governor, he said in a statement that this is a way to alleviate the burden on families. He also talked about separately the importance of the child tax credit and different types of resources available for childcare, and lumping all these together as his efforts to try to better the position for working families in Illinois. But others are looking at what they're paying for gas and just inflation in general, and looking at $100 of groceries, they're going to save $1 from the reduction of the grocery tax. Does that add up for families when you're spending $500 every week? You get $5 off your groceries with no 1% tax. Well, that's going to be eaten up pretty quick by other costs, including filling up the gas tank. More from Don DeWitt with some of his final thoughts.
It's unfortunate. The governor really had an opportunity to make everybody happy in this situation. He could have removed that sales tax. Look at gas is up over where I live in suburban Chicago. Gas is up over $4 a gallon again, because of some storm damage at one of the local refineries. Taxpayers are already being gouged on sales tax on gasoline. The higher the gas price goes, that 6.5% revenue stream that the sales tax charges increases. I think this was a real opportunity to make something good happen for taxpayers who are dealing with cost of living increases for groceries and everything else. He could have taken that LGDF revenue he's already sweeping, made everybody whole, and everybody could have been happy. But like I said earlier, Greg, a tax cut with net zero savings to taxpayers is not a tax cut.
Again, the governor signing this yesterday, touting economic benefits, but when you look at all the other factors that are behind this, is it really a tax cut when local governments are just going to be able to increase their own taxes through ordinance? It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you so much for being with us each and every weekday morning. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell for America's Talking Network, and join us each and every weekday morning, giving you what you need to know to get your day going in the land of Lincoln. Stand by as we prepare for a live interview. Stand by. An audible here. We'll get to that live interview in just moments. Some say that corruption in Illinois is the political equivalent to deep dish pizza. You heard about it, and you kind of know about it, but when you see it, it tends to be a lot more than you thought it would be. And that's something I think that you've got in the political equation here for politics in Illinois and the longtime stories, time and again, of corruption. So clearly that's something that we'll have to focus on here with Illinois in Focus Daily, making sure that we keep up to date with what's happening in that space, because you've got a lot of different things going on. I mean, just in the last 10 years, you can see a litany of different political figures being arrested for corruption charges. I mean, just recently, you've got former House Speaker Michael Madigan. He faces charges of corruption in the ComEd 4 saga. So let's kind of just take a look and see what some of the Republicans in Illinois have to feel can be accomplished in the political space when it comes to corruption. Because again, you know, you've got Illinois corruption being the political equivalent of deep dish pizza. Everyone knows it's there, but it's still surprising when you see how much of it there is. Now, I talked with Illinois GOP Chair Kathy Salvi last month at the Republican National Convention. And she talked about political corruption and just how prevalent it is, especially when she talks and connects with people from other states.
So what is the solution to winning elections for Republicans? We have to look at the failed policies of the past and say, we offer something different and better. And it works. That is, you can't put the mistakes of the past on the working man and woman and burden the family with high taxes and more government interference. And I think that message resonates with people, and that's why they're opening up and open to voting Republican. As for the culture of corruption, I've been here with many of the delegations from around the nation, and sadly, that is what we're known for, a culture of corruption in Illinois. And so I expect that by transparency, collaboration, open communication, and always being available to put my heart into leading this great party with its great message, we're going to turn things around in Illinois.
Again, Kathy Salvi sharing some of her thoughts about how Republicans may try to react to the corruption in Illinois. Because if you look at the list, and I've got a list here, Mike Madigan charged with nearly 24 counts of racketeering, bribery, and extortion in 2022. He was the longest serving state house speaker in U.S. history. Federal prosecutors called it Madigan Enterprise. Nearly decade-long corruption scheme. Ed Burke, Chicago alderman, convicted of racketeering and bribery and attempted extortion last year. He was the longest-serving Democrat Chicago alderman, among the longest-serving. You've got others. Another Chicago alderman faced corruption charges. You had Tim Mapes, an associate of Mike Madigan. You've got some of the other political actors involved. And this is just over the past 5 to 10 years or so with the ComEd 4 saga, but also Martin Sandoval and others. You had Louis Arroyo and all of this involving different types of bribes that were happening. So Illinois corruption, obviously something that's well known across the country. And this also comes as Governor J.B. Pritzker, amid speculation that he was being corrupt, is a stunning abdication of traditional Illinois political values, to which Pritzker says, quote, "My bad." But Tony McCombie, the Illinois House Minority Leader, when asked about how Republicans are going to capitalize on the corruption, the cloud of corruption in Illinois, especially with Mike Madigan going to trial in October ahead of the November election, here's what Tony McCombie had to say late last month during the Republican National Convention.
Well, we'll have to see if he is going to be going to trial, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But Illinois has been unfortunately known for corruption, and we have to stop that. The Illinois Democrats have not been willing to make any change. We've been hearing about ethics, and we've been hearing about changes that they're going to be making, but they continue to not do that. So we're going to have to do that ourselves as voters and actually do that at the voter box.
Now, some Democrats have said, listen, the federal prosecutors are on top of this, and they're already finding people who are breaking laws, and that's why you've got a list of elected officials over the past 5 to 10 years that have been arrested and charged. You go back further, you've got Rod Blagojevich and that whole scenario. But Democrats have taken some steps. I mean, they've worked to change the state's revolving door policies of elected officials going and being lobbyists. They've gone and addressed some of the things with red light camera vendors and so on. So clearly that's something I think is an ongoing question of what kinds of things can be done. Is it just about having laws on the books to keep people from going and being a lobbyist, or is it more of having local officials address these things, having local officials actually investigate impropriety, like, for instance, the Illinois Attorney General, for example. So these are just a few of the other things. And again, Democrats sometimes they do kind of default to, hey, federal prosecutors are investigating these things. They're making the charges and so on. But State Senator Terry Bryant, she shared with us at the RNC some of her thoughts on, why she thinks former President Donald Trump should get in office.
To the corruption issue, again, going back to maybe why some people left Illinois, remember that Donald Trump is who gave the Justice Department the money and the resources that they needed to bring down Mike Madigan.
Clearly, a lot more to be said about all of this, especially as you've got Madigan facing trial in October. So we'll be watching that closely. And also see if the Democrats address this at all from Illinois in Chicago, which has historically been the most corrupt city. And Illinois regularly makes the top list as the most corrupt state, behind Louisiana. Louisiana, I mean, they've got their problems, but again, it's one of those running kind of themes. The amount of corruption taking headlines in Illinois. And how that's going to impact the November election, I guess we'll see. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you for being with us each and every weekday morning. Stay tuned. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell right here with America's Talking Network. Can't believe we're almost to the November 5th general election. And of course, a lot of people are going to be watching what happens at the top of the ticket, but down ballot races also very important because, listen, every 2 years, members of the U.S. Congress from Illinois are up for election. Every 2 years also, members of the Illinois State House are up for election. That means those incumbents facing challenges, Republicans facing challenges from Democrats, Democrats facing challenges from Republicans, but we still have some areas where there's not a lot of competition. One place, though, that you do see competition, as you did 2 years ago, is the 95th district for the Illinois House in the Decatur area, where Democrat incumbent Sue Shearer holds that seat. But joining us now with Illinois in Focus Daily is Lisa Smith, the Republican candidate in that race. Lisa, thanks for taking time with us this morning. And we had some trouble getting connected, but glad that we are connected.
Yes.
Good morning. So let's go through some of the things that you believe are separating you from your Democrat candidate, from your Democrat opponent.
Right. Well, District 96 runs from Decatur all the way over to Springfield. It has a little bit of the rural area in between, but they pretty much cut most of that out, with the last redistricting. The things that separate me from my candidate is I care about the people in my district, and I'm going to work hard to help them. We have a district that needs jobs. It needs a good education system, just like the rest of the state. And we have a candidate that has been pretty much AWOL here, not helping anyone in this district and not really helping anyone in the state.
Your background, interesting, and as far as not just your professional career, but also your private life as well. For people not familiar with who you are, kind of give us, some of your background, what you do professionally, but also how, your family has helped make you who you are.
Right. So, first of all, I'm a mother. We have 10 children. We adopted 7 of those, and most of them came from the district. I am a healthcare provider in the district. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I have a doctorate degree from UIC in Chicago, and I have been practicing with the kids and seeing the kids in my district for the past 35 years. We've been married almost 36 years, and during that whole time, I've worked in this district. So taking care of the children in this district, seeing the families in this district. I see what the needs are for these families. I worked in a community health center there in Decatur for a long time, and now I work with disabled autistic kids in Springfield. So I've been in both cities, Decatur and Springfield, working with the families. With my children, I guess what spurred me into running was that during the COVID, I saw the lockdowns for the kids, and I saw what it was doing to our children in my district and to my children in particular. So I knew that it wasn't a good thing, and I tried to fight against that, and it was just like fighting a brick wall. So I said, what can I do? And talked to my U.S. rep, and I decided I would be running for office, and I would run against Sue Scheer, who, of course, was for all these things, along with our governor, who wanted to run our state kind of like a tyrant and tell us what to do and lock us down and take away our rights. And I said, this isn't right. And I looked at the other issues, and I said, this whole state is ran wrong, which I knew already, but I didn't know the scope of it until I got into politics. And so I am running, I can make a lot more money out in the private sector. This job is not about money. And I think that, I think my opponent, that's what it's about. She's got a job that and of course she gave herself a pay raise, even after people in the state cannot afford their groceries or their gas. And she voted for the $53 million budget, and then put a tax hike on everybody, and then voted herself a pay raise. So here we go. There's lots of things wrong, and I see it, and I think a lot of people see it. And along with, just being a mom and having a family, we want to help change this state back to a state that cares about its citizens.
We're talking with Lisa Smith. She is a Republican candidate for the 96th House District for Illinois. I think I said 95th earlier, so yes. Correction there. Appreciate that. And your Democratic opponent, Sue Scheer, do you have any debates lined up? Have you had any communication about having debates with the Democratic incumbent?
Well, we put out that we'd like to have one. We haven't heard anything back. She's notorious for kind of hiding. I call her the Biden of our district. She hides in her basement, doesn't come out and really talk to people or do debates. So we need to do that. We need to have a debate. I really want to talk about these issues in front of the people and have her explain why she, is doing some of the things she's doing, why she's not voting for the citizens, and she's just hurting our state. And I want her to answer for that. But she has not been vocal. She's not got back to our campaign. So we'll see. We're trying to get someone to call for the debate so that she has to show up.
Lisa Smith with us, looking at some of your platform here, combating the high cost of living. Of course, Illinois is just one of 50 states. And population aside, we're among the largest states. What kind of impact do you think the state legislature could have on what we've seen with the historic inflation over the past 3.5 years?
Well, Illinois is one of the highest taxed states in the nation. With real estate tax, it is the highest taxed state in the nation. And so what we do is we regulate and we tax until we don't have jobs, and we don't have jobs, we don't have people. We know that we lost 87,000 people last year, and that's because they're leaving the state because there's no jobs. The tax rate is so high. The real estate taxes keep them from buying a house. The grocery taxes are high, the gas tax. Instead of decreasing those taxes, instead of saying, let's put a hold on those, what they do is increase everything. We know that we just got another gas tax increase here in July on already high gas prices. My opponent touts that she voted against the grocery tax in a bill, but what they did was they sent it back to the cities. So the cities can tax now groceries at pretty much any rate they want without a referendum or anything. So really you're going to get a higher tax in most of the cities now on your groceries. These are just practical things. If you decrease regulation, if you decrease taxes across the board, you help the economy in your state. And we're not seeing any of that. It's like, it's the definition of insanity that we know about. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to have the same results. And so we just keep really just ruining our state. And it's practical, it's sensible, and there's no sense right now in our legislature. We're not doing anything that is helping. We're only doing things that are hurting.
Another platform issue you have here is resisting imposed agendas, and it seems to range from criminal justice issues to even what's going on in the schools that some people believe is indoctrination. Your opponent comes from the education space, and I believe has support of teachers' unions. Illinois, it's no surprise to you, Lisa, Illinois Republicans are in the super minority. How do you approach these issues, from the criminal justice issues to the education issues, and get across to voters?
Well, I mean, I think education is a big deal with my platform because, I do have kids in the public school system. I've dealt with the public school system. I see the scores of the public school system. When we have less than 10% of kids that can do math at grade level, and you barely have over 10% that can do reading at grade level in the whole district, there's a problem. And then when you look at the state, the numbers are just terrible for the whole state. We have an education crisis in our state. Kids are not learning what they need to learn. We know that reading is directly related to success in the workplace and in life. And we are not setting our kids up for success. And she is the head of the Elementary Education and Secondary Education Committee. She has a lot of power in that committee. Any of the laws and rules that come through that affect our school system, our grade school kids and stuff, come from her committee. So she is letting these things come through. And when we see things about having imposing things on our kids that have to do with sex education, with pronoun, things in our grade schools, with putting feminine hygiene products in our bathrooms and spending, millions of dollars to do these things when they can't read and they can't do math. We have a big problem in our education system, and we can't leave these kids behind. There's a lot of people that say, pull your kids out, put them in private school, homeschool them. Most families don't have the luxury of doing that. So what you're going to do is you're going to have kids that are left behind. And a lot of those kids are the kids that are minorities or in poverty. And we can't leave those children behind. We have to make a good education system for them so all kids can learn and have a good education and grow up and get out of poverty. I mean, that's the goal. It seems like the goal for the Democrat Party and my opponent is to keep these kids dumb and I think under their thumb so they can, run their lives and keep them relying on the government for all of their life. And we want to get them out of that. We want to get them into a good job. We want to get them into a good life. And it's just not fair to these kids. And I think we're doing a great injustice to the children in the state of Illinois.
Lisa Smith running for the 96th Illinois House District in Decatur and parts of Springfield with us, but also part of that overall conversation, criminal justice issues, the Safety Act, of course, with the Pretrial Fairness Act, and those types of things. What kind of messages do you think it sends when, you've got this in place, but the smash and grabs continue in Chicago? We just had a shooting death in Springfield. Yeah. I'm sure Decatur has their fair share of crime as well. How should state policymakers be addressing crime and punishment?
My opponent was the deciding vote on the Safety Act. So the reason the Safety Act got passed was because she voted yes. What we have are criminals that are emboldened to do crime because they're not going to be held in jail. They're going to be, sometimes they aren't even taken to jail. And when they are, they're given a paper saying, here, you're going to appear in court. And hopefully they show up, but then they're back out on the street. And my opponent says she's for women. But what I'm seeing is women are being hurt by this, especially because if they get assaulted by a male and that male goes into the court or into jail, the police take them in there, they just get a piece of paper to appear in court and they're back out on the street. And these women are afraid. They're telling me they are afraid of these men and they're afraid for their life. And yet these guys are running the street and they are criminals usually that have had prior records. And we're seeing that all over the place. They go in, they have, they go in and they steal. They're given a slap on the hand and really nothing else. And they're doing it repeatedly. So what we're seeing is crime of robbery, assault, things like that are really going up because these criminals feel emboldened to do these things because they will not go to jail. So it's not a good law. We need to take it back. We need to just get rid of it, maybe keep some of the good parts that are in it, because I have been talking to the police and there are some things that are good in that they do like, and it helps. But remember, our police were not consulted when that Safety Act was passed or even wrote. And the things that were in it had to be taken back and redone because the Democrats just pushed through a bill that they thought would help with their getting them reelected. And what it is doing, it is hurting the state of Illinois, and it's hurting people and citizens in our district. And we need to take another look at that. Now, we are in the minority, so that is a problem. But, we need to take back one seat at a time. This seat can be taken, and it's a seat we need. So we need to take back as many seats as we can. That people need to get out and vote. Your vote does count. We have got to stand up for what is right. And if you don't stand up and vote, we're not going to ever take back our state and our society to make it into a decent society for people who that won't be scared, and they can get a good job. And all the things that America, is that we have got to have the donations we can, and I would appreciate anything you can do. So thank you so much, Greg, for having me on.
Well, Lisa, thanks for taking the time. Glad we were finally able to connect, and we may
Yes.
talk again in the near future. All right, be safe out there.
Great. Thank you. You too.
All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily, each and every weekday morning here with America's Talking Network. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us as we give you what you need to know to start your day. And get the podcast as well. Really do appreciate all the views on the live stream. Love seeing that increase more and more each day. So definitely join us live. The chat room is abuzz with all kinds of activity, but even there, sometimes the live stream has some blips and it might drop, but we get the podcast out to you wherever you get your podcasts without any interruption. Plus the segments that we record live to tape, we get those out there as well with America's Talking Network. It's all part here with Illinois in Focus Daily. So we'll see you again with more each and every weekday morning here on America's Talking Network, the Center Square, and Illinois in Focus Daily.